What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com. That's HawgSports.com. Today on HawgSports Live, we're going to break down this Portland State game. We're going to talk a little bit about Ole Miss, but we're really going to look back at this Portland State game, talk about some of the things that went on today with Chad Morris's press conferences, discuss injuries and things like that. Danny West is also going to join us to talk a little bit about Razorback recruiting, all that and more on HawgSports Live. All right, before we jump into too much, we got to mention Dorian Gerald. Dorian Gerald wasn't seen in the second half of the game on Saturday and has a strained artery in his neck. So that's a difficult situation, man. That is definitely tough. Now, Gerald was really coming off the ball, looking good on Saturday. I thought the defense overall played well, but this guy's going to be missed. He was really looking good. It dropped his weight all the way down to 261 pounds after showing up at like 289 last year, 286 I think last year. Had a great offseason, good attitude, great guy to interview, really tells it like it is in the interview room. So Dorian Gerald, get well soon. Strange injury there for Dorian Gerald. Just to update a couple of other key injuries. Austin Capps is going to be back. C.J. O'Grady will be back. Jamario Bell will be back. And Mateo Soli fractured his hand, but he will be playing with a cast on Saturday, so he's not expected to miss any time. So tough news on Dorian Gerald. All right, before we move into too much more here, I want to remind everybody, plenty of ways to watch and listen, always streaming on Facebook Live. Go ahead and give us a thumbs up if you like the content that we do at HawgSports.com. On YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Throw a thumbs up, like to the video, and make sure to hit that notifications bell after you subscribe so you're notified anytime that we have a new video. On Apple Podcasts, the #1 Razorback show on Apple Podcasts, 5 stars. Throw us a review if you like the content, and a rating, and a review and a rating would be great. Also on Spotify and Stitcher. HawgSports.com is $1 right now for your first month. Great time to sign up at HawgSports.com. See all of our VIP breakdowns on the game, just going through every single little detail, breaking down Ben Hicks, what he did right, what wasn't on him, what was on him, breaking down the game all the way down, and then, of course, a lot of recruiting stuff going on as the dead period is now lifted. And we'll have Danny West to come and talk about that a little bit. So $1 for your first month at HawgSports.com, or you can sign up for a year, take 30% off your first year, and get a 7-day free trial with that. So good time to join right now at HawgSports.com. All right. Where do we want to start? Let's go with Chad Morris, what he had to say. Here's Chad Morris, what he had to say today. This is about a 2-minute video in his regular Monday press conference.
I want to give credit to Portland State. Those guys, as we knew they would, they had a good plan. They played hard and they fought to the end. And we knew they had nothing to lose and we were going to get their best shot. But after reviewing the film, I will say this: our guys played extremely hard. I'm very proud of how hard our guys played and the great effort that they gave the entire game in all phases, offense, defense, and special teams. I was disappointed in some of the lack of execution of drop balls that ended drives for us on offense. And from a defensive side, lack of execution and that extended drives for them. And so that was disappointing after watching the film. I felt that after the game, and just watching the film confirmed that. Offensively, we had 11 possessions. We had 4 10-play drives or more, it was really good. We had 4 drops, and of those 4 drops, 2 were key third down drops. We had momentum, and we were moving the ball down the field, and to have 2 drops on third down was tough. Our focus for game 1 was executing our base offense and running the football. We were very basic by design for a few reasons. One of those being week 1 and a lot of unknowns, and 2 was some of the scheme and the way that they aligned. There was some uncertainty and some of the things and how they could play us on the back end of things. So by design, we were vanilla. And especially knowing going into a conference opener this next week. So we had a chance to pull away and get a little bit more of a comfortable lead in the first half. Right before half, and come away with points, had a chance to get 10 points, if not 14 points, 2 touchdowns in less than 2 minutes. and we came up with none. We got down in the red zone, and we had an interception on a ball that I know Nick wish he had had back, and we mismanaged the clock, and I took full responsibility for that after the game.
Okay, that was Arkansas head coach Chad Morris, just kind of running down some of the things from the last game. I want to go ahead and start rewinding some things with Portland State. If anybody, if you want to watch my video from after the game, I do a walk and talk after the game where, I don't know, somebody made a good point. When you're walking, you just kind of really tell things how you're feeling, when you're walking and talking. So go check that video out. I'm glad I didn't break down the offensive line. And as I mentioned in that video, I would wait till after I reviewed the video to break down the offensive line. And I saw a lot of people chirping at the offensive line, saying that they didn't perform well, that the quarterbacks didn't have time. I don't know what you were watching. The offensive line was fine. There was maybe 2 times, and really I think on the same series, looked like it might have been on Myron Cunningham, but you don't know until you know the exact blocking scheme where players got by. But other than that, quarterbacks had plenty of time to throw the ball. Plenty of time to throw the ball. All right, let's get right to it. Starting at the beginning, that personal foul penalty on Hayden Henry was bogus. So this dude, Benton Hodge, a cornerback from Portland State, I assume he's a backup, was first Hayden Henry came up behind Grant Morgan and knocked him down, and this dude is taking credit for him. He's up there clapping in his face, and he's hopping around, and he hops into Hayden Henry, who Hayden Henry just kind of goes like that. I mean, what's he supposed to do? It's kind of like a Malcolm Shepard moment against Florida. I mean, what's he supposed to do? That's probably the first personal foul penalty against a Henry ever. So that was bogus to start things out. It's a first game for the refs too. As I mentioned, the offensive line really thought they protected well. I really do. And now I know it's an FCS level school, but I mean, you just can perform against who you win against. And everything the offensive line did, I thought was good enough for Arkansas to win the game, which they did. May not have been true with everybody else. So, yeah, good on the offensive line there. And I went back. I mean, when I say I watched the game, I go back and watch every play. I rewind, watch it again, sometimes watch it multiple times just to watch every position group. So this is something that I just have always done when watching football games. I'll go into Ben Hicks. I've got a breakdown on what he did right and what he did wrong. We'll go over that in a minute. But I noticed on Davis Alexander, who was hell. I mean, that guy could run. He was very elusive. Arkansas's defensive line was in the backfield all the time, even when they had 4. Now, one time I know that they did, they weren't as vanilla as you thought they were. They were bringing pressure. I mean, you don't have a safety with 2 sacks and not, bring some blitzes and stuff like that from the secondary and some stuff like that. So on his 22-yard run on the second play, I noticed they did bring bumper pull, and he got outside of him there and had that big run. But overall, the defense, offensive line both played well. And we'll get into that. Dorian Gerald, the thing that stinks about his injury, and obviously there's things more important than football. He's got to worry about his health. But, man, he was coming off the ball. I mean, he jumped out on the very first play how good he's coming off the ball. So he will be missed. He will be able to redshirt. They'll have him back next year. I mean, if you look ahead to next year, that is good because you're going to be pretty young up front on the defensive line with so many older players moving on. I mean, your top 5, I guess, defensive linemen are freshmen, so you have Dorian Gerald, you'll have Jonathan Marshall back next year. So, but that's definitely tough. For all the talk about running a 4-3 defense, they did not run a 4-3 once, not one time, and pretty much. Now they had a decent rotation going up front. I call it a rotation. They played a lot of backups in the front 7. In fact, on that second to last possession at the end, they had 7, backup players in on the defensive line when they kept having those penalties. It's like 5 flags in a row. But for all the talk of a 4-3, they did not run it. They mostly ran a 4-2-5, ran some nickel where they would bring Joe Fouché down as the extra defensive back from free safety, and then would have Miles Mason in for him. So I don't know that those D-backs came off the field. I don't think the starting defensive backs came off the field, which is understandable because they're relying on so many young players. You make one little mistake and somebody throws over the top of you and it's a game all of a sudden. So I can understand why they didn't do that. Arkansas has got to get the ball to Devion Warren, man. Love this kid's energy. Love his body language. I mean, this kid was looking good. And he's done some things, in kickoff return, but at receiver, he just never seems to get it going. But Devion Warren's a guy that they need to continue to get the ball to, along with Mike Woods, Trey Knox. Looks like Arkansas could have 4 pretty solid wide receivers there, and maybe some others as they continue to develop. I want to get into Chase Harrell, because nobody has caught more flack than Chase Harrell in this game. Maybe Ben Hicks. But Harrell did have 3 drops. Okay, you can't excuse he had 3 drops, and I don't want to say I told you so, but I did. I mean, I've seen him in practice. I've seen him in games. He just does not have exceptional hands. Now, that doesn't mean he cannot be a part of the game plan, because Arkansas does not have the game that they had running the ball without Chase Harrell. And I know that's like nobody really looks at the blocking, but if you go back and look at this game and you focus on him, the plays that he's in, I mean, he's plowing people. Not only is he doing that, is he getting physical and knocking people back, but he's finding blocks in space. He's getting downfield, finding guys to block. I can guarantee you that that Devion Warren, that Rakeem Boyd, Devwah Whaley's really, he only had 1 good run, an 11-yarder. They don't have that game. They don't have that day without Chase Harrell's blocking. So they are going to bring back C.J. O'Grady for this one. He wasn't quite ready for the last one, but he will be back. But there is a role for Chase Harrell in this offense. He's got to get better at catching the ball, and I don't know if that's something that just happens overnight. I mean, he's just always kind of struggled in that role to me. You don't move a wide receiver to tight end really if he's a great receiver, but that deserves to be mentioned, and I know that he's especially catching a lot of flack. This is the best safety play that Arkansas has had. I mentioned that in my post-game walk and talk. Best safety play that Arkansas has had since probably Tremaine Thomas 7 years ago. Let's see what else I got here. Special teams didn't hurt him that much. I still don't understand why Reed Bauer was punting over Sam Lloyd, but it looks like they dropped the or on this depth chart. That it is going to be Sam Lloyd punting, but I don't know what that was with starting him out as the punter. He punted 36 yards is about what he usually does. So good to see Lloyd going as the starting punter now. They did have an issue with fielding balls that were landing inside the 5-yard line. The first 2 went into the end zone. That's got to stop. And then, my guy Devion Warren at the end is just kind of taking it in his own hands, like, I got it. And he recovered. And that was a big one because that was fourth quarter right before their last drive of the game where you needed to pin them deep. And on that drive, I mean, the one thing that was real disappointing, not the one thing with Devwah was, putting it on the ground there in the fourth quarter on that drive where you needed to put away. Portland State still had 2 timeouts left. There's like a minute 33 left on the clock. They recover the ball at the 40-yard line on their side. That could have spelled disaster. You got to have better. Your senior back, Devwah's got to do better than that. He knows that. But that was the one thing I thought was kind of disappointing about what Devwah did. Just, you're trying to put the game away there. Can't fumble the ball. Chad Morris and Nick Starkel at the end of the game, or at the end of the first half, you can obviously see Chad Morris is saying, spike it, spike it, spike it. And you see Justin Stepp and, I guess a couple of other staff members. I guess this means run the same play again when they do a guitar. But everybody's doing that except for Chad Morris. So they'll get that figured out, whatever that was. But that cost them a field goal right there. I didn't know. I mean, everybody's going, what are they doing? So there's some kind of miscommunication. But you can see Chad's calling for a spike, and everybody else is doing this. And they're lining up to run a play. And Chad was right behind him, so he couldn't see him. Let's see. Austin Capps was hit for a holding call. I've watched that several times. If your hands are inside, I mean, this is how they teach you. Inside, you don't want to be like this. You want your arms inside, your hands inside, and when the guy tries to release and go the other way, you let him go. And that's what I saw on that. I don't know why they called holding. That was the most That's what you do every single game. I mean, every play offensive lineman, that's what you want to be. I don't understand why they called holding on Capps on that. It did look like he got rolled up from behind. He's supposed to be back in this one, but at 12:52 to play in the game, he got rolled up from behind. It looked like his ankle, but they do expect him back for this one. Really liking what I see out of the secondary. I mentioned the safeties, but, man, those cornerbacks, Monteric Brown and Jarquez McClellan, both had their moments. I mean, Brown had that big hit. That running back was coming around that corner, and he's a big guy. He's 220, I think, listed on the roster. And he lowered his shoulder, and Monteric lowered his shoulder. And Monteric's considered, slightly built, and he separated that kid from the ball. It was a nice lick. So Monteric played well. Jarquez McClellan played well, had that interception, had a pass interference call at the end. I mean, really, they were tugging back and forth at each other, but that was probably not the worst thing that could have happened at that particular time. But Jarquez had a nice interception midway through the third quarter. The thing that I really didn't like, now you can question the offensive play calling. It's easy to look back on stuff, but I remember thinking, man, why? It was 1st and 5 at the 9-yard line, and they threw 2 incomplete passes and had a 1-yard run by Chase Hayden. I talked about this in the walk and talk too, but it bears mentioning again. Why are you not running the ball? First of all, with Rakeem Boyd. Rakeem Boyd should be this is your chance to literally ice it. The game's over right there if you score a touchdown. You could go 1.5 yards on 6 runs in a row and get into the end zone, and take a ton of time off the clock. Instead, they threw a pass, which the ball was in jeopardy on that pass to Chase Hayden. Then they ran with Chase Hayden. Then they had another incomplete pass. I mean, I think he threw it away on that one. So I just don't understand what the play calling was on that particular series. 1st and 5 at the 9-yard line. You get 2 first downs there. Arkansas went up 20-6, and Portland State took over 10:44 to play. This is when with that 10:44 left, and they had all those penalties. They had Jonathan Marshall jumped offside. Marcus Miller came in for one play, the only play that I think he played, jumped off sides, was actually encroachment, had made contact. Then 2 plays later, Jamario Bell jumped off sides, but they were offsetting penalties. And then 2 plays after that, Joe Fouché jumped off sides. No, with Jamario, one of those, they actually took the yardage. I think they took 7 yards and lost a down versus 5 yards and getting the down back, which was not smart on Portland State's part. I don't know why they did that. But yeah, you just had a lot of penalties. And then later on that drive, Gabe Richardson almost had Jelani Eason, who had come in for the other guy, for Alexander, almost had him tackled behind the line of scrimmage for a sack, and Grant Morgan was right there, didn't get him. And then, the ball goes like 2 inches over Cameron Curl's arms outstretched, and then like right under Monteric. That was like a miracle pass play too. The only NFL guy on Portland State's roster. That was a miracle pass play. Stuff like that happens in football. I mentioned the Devois deal. Game ended on Joe Fouché's interception. Joe Fouché's got to get down. It didn't cost him, but the worst thing that can happen is for the ball to stay in play. So you got to get down after that interception. But that's kind of my thoughts on how everything broke down. I want to remind everybody to go ahead and get your questions in. Danny West is going to join us here in a minute. So get some questions in. Let's limit the comments, because when I start getting a bunch of comments, the questions fly off the page. So just keep the comments section, if you don't mind, 2 questions and not comments so much. Should rename it instead of comments, questions. All right, let's break down Ben Hicks real quick. So Hicks also catches a lot of flack, but there are some things that were on him, some things that weren't. And the way I broke it down, obviously everything changes. There's the butterfly effect. You complete an incomplete pass, everything changes, right? But just for the sake of discussion, let's say it didn't. So he finished 14 of 29 for 143 yards, 48.3% with no touchdowns and no interceptions. Not necessarily the numbers that you would want from, an experienced veteran quarterback who's, your coach on the field type. But a few things go a little bit differently. Then you could add, I think, 4 more completions for about 70 yards minimum. Plus Mike Woods falling down on that play probably would have picked up 20 yards to a touchdown. So then you're talking more like 18 of 29, which is about 62% for 213 yards. So a little bit, and probably more points. Definitely more points. So could have been a little bit better. That's not exceptional by any means against an FCS opponent. It's not exceptional, but could have been a little bit better. So some of the things that weren't on him, with 11:06 to play in the first quarter, he hit Mike Woods in the flats for what could have been a 20-yard touchdown, but Woods fell down for a 1-yard loss. That could have been a nice play for him. I think they ended up getting the field goal on that one. Wasn't a perfect throw and was a little bit behind him, but he hit Trey Knox with 12:38 to play before halftime. This was their 3rd series. It was 3rd and 8, and it was wide open, and Knox kind of was thinking more about what he was going to do with the ball afterwards and drop the pass. So, and that was 3rd down, so you lose the ball there. So that was big. Who knows what could have happened after that. Came back and had a fairly poor 50-50 ball to Traylon Burks, and then threw a dart to Chase Harrell that would have converted 3rd and 6, but it was dropped. That should have been absolutely caught. It probably would have been a 20-plus yard play. I mean, the ball was about 20 yards downfield, so he probably could have done something with it after that, and then Arkansas had to punt. So that was a tough one there on a third and 6. Then later it probably would have only gone for 4 yards, and this would have been a little bit tougher catch, but it was still a drop. But Harold did drop a pass there a little bit later on 4th and 1. Arkansas later converted to 4th and 1. So they didn't get that pass, but they did convert the down and kept the drive alive anyway. With 13:13 to play in the game, Hicks rolled out bootleg and had Harold wide open in the flats. Hit the ball, would have hit him, I mean, right in the chin, and dropped that. Again, Harold did some really good things in this game that went unnoticed. I know they did because it's blocking, but he really did, and I wouldn't be saying that if he didn't. But as a ball catcher, got to be better. So the things that were on Hicks, the things that hurt him when Arkansas had negative plays, 3rd and 6 with 9:45 to go from the 16-yard line. He threw over the middle to Grayson Gunner in traffic, but it looked like he had Trey Knox in the northeast pylon at the goal line. They ended up settling for that 34-yard Connor Limpert field goal in the first possession. With 6:25 to go in the first, he had Burks wide open for what would have been a 20-yard gain, probably like 30 yards, and it went incomplete. But he threw, I mean, that ball was way behind him. But a minute later, he hit Tyson Morris on a corner route on 3rd and 9 for 16 yards. So that pass was actually almost in. I can't believe that. I thought it was intercepted. That pass to Tyson Morris for 16 yards on 3rd and 9. I mean, a better defender probably would have picked that off. So definitely not reason just to praise Ben Hicks there. But I thought that could have been easily intercepted. But anyway, that was a bad throw on that one to Burks. Arkansas was forced to punt with 7:35 to go after back-to-back bad throws by Hicks on a corner route and then an overthrown screen. I think they may have hit Rakeem Boyd with a drop pass on that, but that was just a bad pass. I don't give him a drop on that. I don't know if it hit your hands, but I mean he's like falling back. I mean, there's no way that even if he'd caught it, there would have been anything. Jarquez McClellan, after Arkansas punted into the end zone again and only had a 19-yard net, Jarquez McClellan made an interception, so they kind of balanced things out a little bit. Then with 11:52 to play, Hicks had pressure in his face and then put the ball in jeopardy. I don't know what they were. That was when they were down there at the goal line. They should have been running the ball 6 times, or at most 6 times they could have run it. But he threw, I don't know what that play was. He was kind of fading away and threw the ball to the end zone. There's a ton of Portland State defenders right there. He's trying to go to Chase Hayden. So they got lucky on that one. And then speaking of luck, his arm was hit with 6:33 to play in the third quarter, and the ball just kind of fluttered off to Michael Woods. But that was fortunate and a little bit lucky there. How we doing, everybody? We got some questions built up. We're going to get to Danny West here in a little bit. I have no idea how long I've gone. We have gone 23 minutes, so I got to go to Danny West here in just a minute, but I want to get to these 5 burning questions. We had 5 burning questions, and we have 5 not-so-soothing answers. Is Ben Hicks the guy at quarterback? I said before these jobs are won in camp, and no, he's not the guy yet. He's not the guy at quarterback. And in fact, if Nick Starkel had stayed in there, if he hadn't thrown that interception, I think they might have tried to see what Nick could do a little bit more in that one. So Ben Hicks has not proven that he's the guy at quarterback. It's still an open job as far as I'm concerned. Ben Hicks is a starting quarterback in title only right now. Title only. All right. How good are Trey Knox and Traylon Burks? Very good. Now, they're going to be very good. They're good now, but they're going to be very good because they're both playmakers. But things like route running and something that I noticed they do is they hold their hands like they're open and when they're not open. Burks did that on Starkel's touchdown pass. There was no way. First of all, he got intercepted, and if that hadn't been interception, the guy behind him was at least going to knock it down. But Knox and Burks are both going to be an exceptionally good players. They're both got playmaking ability. Now it's about all the things that you do before the ball gets to you. And as the ball gets to you, in Knox's case, he did have that drop. Can the offense get off to a fast start? Yep, they got off to a fast start. They got off to a really slow finish, though. Really slow finish. But I noticed when they came out, I was like, okay. And the scripted part, they script those first 15 plays. So the first 18 plays worked out well for Arkansas. the first 18. And that's, expected even with Portland State. I said, they probably come out and have a touchdown or points early on and then maybe get some trash stuff at the end. That's not how it worked out, but they had scripted plays. They had a game plan going in, and Arkansas did too. And you did notice more pre-snap stuff, guys coming in and out of the backfield. You didn't see that as much last year, even though, as Chad Moore said, it was still a vanilla game plan on offense. A vanilla game plan that almost got them in trouble. Does Arkansas have any depth on defense? In the front seven, maybe. I mean, I thought the backup linebackers played well. They lose some guys on the defensive line, so particularly Dorian Gerald, so lose a little bit of depth there. The secondary they just did not play backups unless they were in dime and they had to. But still, the jury's still out. But I thought the front 11 or the starting 11 all played very well on defense. Does Arkansas have a special player in Rakeem Boyd? I think that goes without saying that Rakeem Boyd can be a star in this offense. You talk about the offensive line not opening up running lanes, but Rakeem Boyd, he didn't seem to have too much trouble running. Penalties. Arkansas had 7 penalties for 70 yards, which is twice the number that they had last year. A lot of that came on the second to last series against the defense. And then there was, the opening personal foul, which was bogus. The holding on Austin Katz, which I thought was bogus too. So turnovers. Arkansas got 3 turnovers in the game, 3 interceptions. That's what you want. Get 3 turnovers a game. You're going to lead the country in turnovers. Special teams. Kind of mixed. I mean, Connor Limpert made both his field goals. He didn't seem to get the ball deep. I don't know if that was on purpose or not. We should have asked that today if that was intentional. But, they were fair catching the ball. You get it at the 25 now. So, and then they had the miscues on the punts that were landing inside the 5-yard line. Critical areas. Made it to the red zone inside the 26 times. It only came away with 2 touchdowns. Not very good. 5 of 15 on third down conversions, which is 33%. Not much better than last year's percent, which was 30%, and last in the SEC last year. So, no, I would say that they failed in that area. Physicality, defense, yes. Offensive line, yes. Tight ends, yes. I mean, I thought they played pretty physical overall. Rakeem Boyd ran the ball hard. Yeah, I would give them physicality. I mean, if you go back and look at the game, you're going to see a lot of red jerseys swarming the ball. Defense getting into the backfield. That quarterback, like I said, was hell trying to get a handle on him. But I would say Arkansas played physical. They made some mistakes that cost them. They had some drops. They had some things here and there that really cost them in that game. And I'm going to say it again, I said the most disappointing thing about this team would be coming out if they came out looking sloppy. The most disappointing thing since November when they lost 38-0 to Missouri would be if they came out looking sloppy. So I would say that was definitely a reason to be disappointed. This Ole Miss game coming up is going to be low-scoring, I fear. It could be a very low-scoring affair, judging by the way that they held Memphis. And Memphis put up some yards on it. They just didn't score points. And then Ole Miss's offense just really didn't move the ball very well. So, all right, we're going to jump into my man Danny West. Time for Danny. We're going to talk a little bit about Razorback recruiting. We'll talk a little bit about the freshmen also, if I can find Danny West graphic. There we go. All right, give me a second to get Danny on.
Trey Biddy.
Hey, Danny. How you doing, man?
Doing good. Happy Labor Day to everybody.
Oh, yeah. Happy Labor Day. I always forget about Labor Day because
we have to work.
Well, I've never had a Labor Day off in 16 years.
Yeah.
So this is my 16th Labor Day that I haven't been able to do anything in a row.
Yeah.
We always have Monday press conferences. So, Danny, obviously Arkansas got 2 big commitments. I think we can jump into those real quick. Let's start with Darren Turner, number 193 overall prospect in the country, an athlete who could play wide receiver or in the secondary. How big is this commitment?
Well, I think it's both of them are kind of overshadowed a little bit based on Saturday's game, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's a little bit upset about how that one went, and I don't blame them. But, yeah, very big last 4 days here. Darren, I'll start with him. You brought him up. I don't think there's any doubt he could play wide receiver in the SEC. I mean, you watch his film, it's hard not to say, yeah, he definitely needs to be playing offense. But I still say, Trey, I like that length and athleticism in the secondary, especially when you look at their current recruiting board as safety. Just not a lot of names there that excites you. and not a lot of depth there either. I don't think they've got very many options, to be honest with you. So we've seen them go after a big safety in the past. Miles Mason, obviously. I think Darren is a much more athletic Miles Mason. So, if you ask me, I'd put him on defense, but he does a little bit of everything at Central High School there in Memphis. Wide out, he can go win a jump ball. He can make those one-hand Odell Beckham-type grabs in traffic. But they've even run him at a Wildcat quarterback. I mean, he does it all. But defensively, again, I think he's got so much ability to cover ground. He can make those big receivers. He can match up with them and the tight ends in this conference. And, if he does come away with a pick, you better look out because he knows what to do with it then. So a really big get there. And then we'll move on to Catrell Wallace, obviously out of Bryant. I like that kid a lot. I mean, 6'6", 210. You just look at his frame. He's going to be a really big guy. It might take him a little bit, but he'll get there. He kind of looks skinny. He looks light right now at 6'6", 210. So that tells you a lot about his frame. Really rangy guy. We saw him last year at Bentonville West. I think he's super physical, very aggressive. And he's got the great length that you're looking for and knows how to use it. So that's a guy that's not even close to tapping into what he's going to be, in my opinion. But you think about his recruitment, we've talked about him for several months now as a possibility to be the next commitment. You heard me say all summer long, I'd probably put him up there as one to watch as the next guy. Well, then he missed a few scheduled trips to Fayetteville for one reason or another, couldn't make it to campus. Finally got up here this past weekend, and I think they pushed it. I think they really wanted him to go ahead and not take those trips to Nebraska, Ole Miss, Oklahoma State this fall. That's an in-state guy that they offered way, way before everybody else. So probably a little bit impatient. Go ahead and make your decision here. And to be honest with you, I think he had already made it and just hadn't announced it until yesterday. So, good weekend in recruiting. I know it was overshadowed by that pathetic performance Saturday, but they're still doing well, still doing really well in recruiting.
Danny West joining us here on HawgSports Live. Now, Danny does another podcast that is only for VIP subscribers, so we definitely hash over some things here, but for the real inside scoop, like what's going to happen, what's about to happen, if you want that type of information, you need to read his stuff VIP on HawgSports.com. And that podcast that he's done 2 of them now. It's something he's going to do every week, like on Fridays. Really goes in depth and answers your questions on that kind of stuff. Not that we don't hash through some stuff here, but just a lot more in depth. Most of Danny's stuff is VIP at HawgSports.com. As I said before, you can subscribe at HawgSports.com for $1 right now for your first month, or get 30% off your first year. That's HawgSports.com. Real quick, one more time, plenty of ways to watch and listen. Facebook Live, YouTube, throw us a thumbs up if you like the content. If you like what Danny's cooking, throw us a thumbs up right now if you haven't done so already. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. So plenty of ways to watch and listen. Again, throw us a thumbs up right now if you like what Danny West is delivering for you. So, Danny, dead period is over.
Yep.
Your chill time is over. What's happening next? These guys can get out and just talk about
Sunday, that. September 1, every year, coaches are allowed to start reaching out to their 2021. Well, I should say the next junior class. They can start hitting those guys up, and we've seen that so far. Actually, that's what I'm looking at today, looking at a whole bunch of 2021 names that I know are way, way high on their list, and just trying to sort through them and get with some of those guys to see what they've heard so far. But yeah, like I said a couple weeks ago, I think it was on this program that not anticipating Arkansas going out on the road, which they can now. The evaluation period has started as of yesterday, so they can be out this week if they want to be. But, like we've talked about, Trey, they've had this game circled for a long time now, and they're not likely to take many chances in terms of distractions or taking the focus off of this game. So I wouldn't anticipate very many coaches really going out. You might have some here or there, maybe stop by a game in Northwest Arkansas or whatever, but don't anticipate much activity this week until they get through this Ole Miss game this Saturday. They know how big it is, and like I said, they do not want to take their focus off of that one.
Hey, Danny, I want to, and you're absolutely right. I mean, how long we talked about the importance of this Ole Miss game.
Long time.
I mean, yeah, it's been
All year.
Yeah, all year. It's a huge one.
Literally all year.
It's a huge one.
It's so big.
So,
especially Trey, I want to make a point real quick. Mm-hmm. I mean, a couple of the guys that we keep talking about, Omari Thomas, Bryson Eason, right there in Memphis. You know, you've already got Darren Turner and Martavius French,
mm-hmm.
and you know they're helping you now with those two guys. But this game could go a long way in determining a lot with those two guys. Both of them obviously have interest in Ole Miss. I don't think it's so much a head-to-head battle with Ole Miss necessarily as it is. You just need a positive something to point to at this point. You got it. And if you can beat Ole Miss, get your first conference win under Chad Morris, and do it on the road in their house, especially after what you just put out on the field last week, I think people would start to feel a lot better. And especially those recruits, they would finally have something to point to there.
Yeah. You go on the road in Oxford and beat Ole Miss, and people stop thinking about this last game. So, Danny, you had a story after the game. One of your stories was about the freshman who played against Portland State. Let me ask you a couple of guys here and there. So, Trey Knox and Traylon Burks. You probably don't have the story in front of you, so I'll go over it with you. But Trey Knox and Traylon Burks, what were your impressions?
Well, I felt like Trey had a pretty disappointing drop there. Mm-hmm. I want to say first quarter.
Yeah, he's missed 8 of the last 10 practices at least, maybe 9 of 10.
And that's fair. Yeah. That's fair to mention. You know, he is rusty. He hasn't practiced, but that was disappointing. But then he comes back with the 38-yarder to put him in position to score right before half. We know how that turned out. They weren't able to do that. So, you know, he's going to be fine. I worried a little bit rewatching the game that maybe he's not getting separation, not getting off the line
mm-hmm.
well enough. But again, you know, you talk about the time he's missed. Maybe that had something to do with it. Traylon Burks, I thought he was fantastic. Yeah. I really did.
Would you return punts
3 for 52? I think I would, man. He was,
doing it.
Like Chad said after the game, he was one shoestring away from breaking one of them there. So.
Yeah.
I think I'd hang around for a little bit longer and see if he might be able to pop one.
Everybody's worried he's going to get hurt.
I know it.
That's what all the
That's
comments
football,
are.
though, man.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll tell you this. Everybody, you know, we make so much about that. I remember a time when Darren McFadden and Felix Jones returned every single kickoff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean,
that's right.
Those were pretty good players there, and they didn't worry too much about them getting hurt.
That's right. So Gregory Brooks Jr., for as much as Arkansas talked about going to a 4-3 defense a lot, in this one they didn't run a 4-3 a single time. So Gregory Brooks Jr. got to start at nickel. What'd you think about him?
Well, what do you have, a tackle? I mean, I think it says a lot just knowing that he's a starter out there. I think he's earned that, and I think in time he's going to be a really good player. Really didn't see a whole lot from him Saturday, you know, but we talked about it. That secondary played a great game, man. Probably one of the best played.
Oh, yeah. Everybody had a moment.
And granted, it's against Portland State. You would expect everybody to have a good game, but that wasn't the case. That wasn't the case. Not everybody did, but the secondary sure did. So I like Greg. I think he's going to be good.
Danny Mateo broke his damn hand. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, broke his
hand. Did that just come out today?
Came out today. He's got a cast. I imagine he's got some kind of soft cast on there, but he's going to be able to play, but he's got a fracture in his hand. But another guy that came off the ball pretty good. Marcus Miller only played one snap, so it's hard to glean too much from either of those guys. Miller only played the one snap.
Wait, was it even a snap?
Well, it counts as something. It's a penalty. So he's
Good
in the
Lord,
books.
Bubba. I mean, you get your chance, man. Don't go out there and jump.
That was
learn from that.
That was the worst series that they had on defense. They had 7 backups in on the front 7 and just did not. They crossed half midfield and they put all the starters in with Bell in for Gerald. But
look out for Bell now, Trey. I know we're talking freshmen here, but hey, Jamario's finally got his shot with DG going down.
Yeah, Jamario looks good. Zach Williams and Ricky Stromberg played a little bit, as you mentioned. I was glad to see Sam Lloyd get most of the punts. I don't think Sam Lloyd ever had a boom like they were all like end over end pooch punt style kicks. But I don't think
that was the situations they were in. Yeah,
he never. And I don't know why they had Reed Bauer doing the first kick. I mean,
I
thought it was going to be the other way. I thought, okay, Reed's a good pooch punter. That's why he's going to split. But they had Reed booming and Sam Lloyd pooching.
Head scratcher, man. I don't get that one bit.
I don't
get it.
I don't get it.
It's disappointing.
So that's pretty much it on the freshmen, Danny.
Yeah, I thought it was notable the guys that didn't play. You know, we didn't see Jalen Catalan. We didn't see what's our other? What's the other freshman?
Devin Bush.
Devin Bush.
I think there's probably a fear of, defensive backs, especially safeties.
Sure.
You make a mistake and, it's a 80-yard touchdown, So I think that's probably the fear. Just the score was always close. So and plus defensive backs, you talk about linebackers not wanting to play over 70% of the snaps. For defensive line, it's probably 60%, and for defensive backs, it's probably 80 or better. So
I'll tell you one more freshman I'd like to see play.
Mm-hmm.
Monte Spivey at running back.
Yeah.
I think
he will.
I'd give him a shot.
I think he will too. I mean, especially you just didn't get a whole lot out of your running backs. I mean, I really think it's Rakeem Boyd all by himself, and then Devwah Whaley all by himself, and then who knows after that. I think there's just a pretty big gap at running back there. I would like to see. I mean, the kid can run or he can't, right? He's going to have to brush up on pass pro and stuff like that, but he can run or he can't. It's the bottom line. You got anything else for us?
Well, it goes back, staying on that, but I put out a stat on Twitter last night. Some of the first down rushing attempts. Mm-hmm. Rakeem was over 7 yards per carry. The other two guys were at 2 point something.
Yeah.
I mean, it tells you a lot. That puts you behind the sticks, man. And, everybody keeps talking about, when are we going to see this hammer down offense? You have to win on first down, and Rakeem's the only one doing it.
Yeah, that's something that you bring up.
A shot.
Danny and I sit next to each other for the games, and I mean, he brings it up every game. First down runs, first down. I mean, it's been bad the last couple of years.
Yeah.
All right, brother.
All right, man. Y'all have a good one.
All right, appreciate you. So that's Danny West, our main recruiting man at HawgSports.com. Again, that's HawgSports.com. All right, we're going to get into these questions real quick. I probably had some more things to go over. I mean, we could really have gone all day long on all this stuff. I wanted to play Ben Hicks's audio from the post game, but you can listen to that elsewhere. So let's go over the what I've got. Obviously, the comments roll off when we get so many of them. But Kim Clemens says Craddock was the problem last year too. I think it's probably a little bit early to judge. I have my question marks with some of the play calls. Absolutely. Some of it's execution. It was a more vanilla offense. I'm not willing just to put it all on Craddock, but man, that 1st and 5 was frustrating down at the goal line. I will say that. Some of the other stuff, you can put some of it on Ben Hicks. You can put on it some of it on drops and stuff like that. So who knows how things would have played out. Had things, a couple things gone differently here and there. So we'll see on play calling. It's Craddock and Morris. Morris is involved in those play calls too. They discuss everything together. And Morris said as much in the offseason that he would be more involved in the play calling. Ryan Staver says, do you think some of the play calling was situational for certain players and certain downs? I mean, yeah, I think it was. Curtis Kendrick says prediction for week 2. I mean, I predicted Arkansas to lose in our preseason picks. I had them 6-6. I have them losing this game to Ole Miss. I just think you're relying on so many young players. It's on the road in Oxford. At the same time, Ole Miss has had to prepare for Memphis. They can't just look ahead to Arkansas like Arkansas was able to do a little bit. There was some looking ahead. They say the right things, but there's some looking ahead even for a 2-10 team. So that is an advantage for Arkansas, but it is a road game at 6:30 in Oxford. It's going to be tough. I'm not saying they can't win. In fact, I'll predict a pretty close game. Last year they probably would have beaten them if Rakeem Boyd stayed healthy, and we'll have some stories on Rakeem Boyd here later in the week. So right now I'm saying Ole Miss takes that one, though I think it can be close, and I think it could go either way. Ricky Williams, I think it'll be low scoring based on what I've seen so far. Ricky Williamson said, didn't Coach Morris have to take over play calling last year at some point? I don't know if he ever took over, but I will say that he has his fingerprints are on the play calls, definitely. Hicks throws the ball late or behind receivers. Receivers were running wide open. He doesn't see the field well. I would agree with you on some of that, Treadway. I think that he lacked a killer instinct on a lot of stuff where you got to trust your arm. As I said on the walk and talk, it's a fine line between being careless and having a killer instinct. And, I thought he was careless sometimes too now. But obviously the real careless throw goes to Starkel. Bobby Dale says Harrell needs to sit the bench. There's a role for Harrell, Bobby. I mean, it's not catching third down passes. But run blocking, I mean, the guy can absolutely help you there. And I'm not saying he should never get thrown a pass again, but not in such a critical situation. Treadway says it's time for Starkel or John Stephen Jones. I don't think it's time for John Stephen. Curtis Kendrick says, I say play both quarterbacks at the same time somehow. Mark Warman says, why do the Hogs always start out so slow, even under the Nut era, DMAC, et cetera? You know, Danny was sitting next to me in the press box, and he goes, why can't they just beat people 55-10 like everybody else? Curtis Kenner says he had a lot of bad passes. Yeah, he did. Starkel needs a whole half to adequately judge his ability. Yeah, I mean, he needs more time. I think you're probably going to see Starkel some of this Ole Miss game regardless of how Hicks is doing. When you have young receivers run, I don't know. They've got playmakers at receiver, but here's the deal, Aaron Livingston. Here's the deal. You can't run Rakeem Boyd 30-something times against a team like this. I mean, you got to have him healthy all season. And so there was a drop-off in the running game with the running backs. I think that was obvious. Mark Warman says, how impressed are you with Chavis? I think he's our best coach. I think Chavis, called it a fine game. I mean, they were vanilla on offense. I don't know that they were so vanilla on defense. They did a lot of movement. They brought some players from the secondary and from nickelback and brought some linebackers. They didn't just have straight four-man rush the whole time, but I thought the defense, if that quarterback is not as mobile as he is, then I thought the defense would have, really just shut him down. Did Hudson Henry play? No, I don't recall seeing him. No, he wasn't out there. Tyler Tober. Russell Martin says start a new quarterback and ride the O-line and discipline them. Steve Dutton says the drops has to be cleaned up. Any one of those plays could have went for big gains. I agree with that. All but one of them. One of them was probably going for about 4 yards at best. How well is our offensive line going to hold up? We're awfully small. I thought the offensive line played well, Steve. How much better they play against a better team like Ole Miss with guys like Benito Jones and stuff, that remains to be seen. But against the opponent that they played, I did not see any problem with the offensive line. And I'm glad I didn't say anything because my initial thought was, man, the offensive line must have, given them a hard time. But I'd rather just, trust my eyes and go back over the video and give a more accurate assessment. And anybody who says the offensive line blocked poorly or something just wasn't watching or wasn't paying attention. Josh Richardson says, do you think NS gets playing time? Nick Starkel versus Ole Miss? Absolutely. I think he'll get more, and I think he'll absolutely get playing time. Tober says, why did Starkel not go back into the play the fourth quarter when we had a two-possession game? Probably had something to do with that interception. I don't know if it had anything to do with the play right before halftime ended when he needed to spike it because everybody else was telling him to go ahead and run the play. But I think you're going to see more Nick Starkel against Ole Miss. Justice Max says, has Hicks shown any ability to take the top off the defense and stretch the field? Not like Starkel has. And that's why one reason, Hicks has the benefit of knowing the offense better, so you got young receivers and he can get them in the right place and stuff. He still can't go under 50% passing and, obviously some drops there. But Starkel has the arm to really, those receivers may need help lining up, but once they get downfield, somebody's got to get them the ball. And that, I think, eventually we're going to see Starkel be that guy. J. Mo says we're a lot faster on defense. I had noticed that too. When they were coming after the quarterback, they were getting there in a hurry. There was a noticeable difference, especially a guy like Greg Brooks. When they would bring him, they're going to miss Dorian Gerald. Gerald comes off the ball faster than any defensive lineman that they have, maybe solely, but Gerald was coming, man. He was bringing it. Larry Vineyard says, how do you feel about the coaching? It's still up for grabs. Here's the deal. They had a vanilla game plan, and it almost cost them the game. I think you can absolutely question some of the play calling, but you're going to be able to do that after just about every game. So there are some things that I think you would question on the offensive side of the ball, no question about that. Larry Vineyard says, why didn't KJ Jefferson? KJ Jefferson is not ready to play. He's just not. If you see him in practice, you understand what I mean. Got a lot of upside. There's no way he's ready to go out there on the field and be the starting quarterback. Heck, I don't know if Nick Starkel was ready for what he had out there throwing that interception. I don't know what he was thinking on that. Stephen Murray says, why are we using two punters? I think you're going to see one punter moving forward. I don't know why they started Reed Bauer in that one. I don't know. Zach Bribery says, number one for Portland was dirty all game. Hit Woods late after he shook him. Johnny White says, will Morris play not to lose next week? Can't play not to lose. Absolutely can't do that. Not against Ole Miss. Why is Burks returning punts? He isn't a year removed from his ACL. I don't know. If it's not an issue, then it's not an issue. If he's back 100% from his ACL, if he wasn't back 100%, he wouldn't be out there. Bobby Dale says not beating Ole Miss. That's probably what I would pick right now, Bobby Dale, although Ole Miss certainly didn't look awesome. Josh Richards says defense was good except for over pursuing, which is fixable. I agree with that, Josh. Special teams were good except for, down fielding those punts down there. Time of the quarterback with the Sears is fixable. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. There's a lot of stuff is fixable. Absolutely. I think that they have better players and a better team than last year. I know that they do. But it was disappointing. There's no question about it. But there's a lot of stuff out there that you can look back on and say, and fix. There really is. You got to know who your playmakers are, too, and you got to go to your playmakers in key situations, and sometimes they didn't do that either. A.V. Green says, will the first practice this week be tomorrow? First practice they do a light stuff Sunday, but Tuesday, is the first practice. Yeah, a lot of going over stuff, game planning type, implementing that stuff today. Matt A. Worley says, I'm going to have to disagree about Bell. There's something wrong with his knee. Was limping the whole game. Losing Darren is huge. Most differential player out there. I didn't notice Bell limping. Maybe you did, though, Matt. I would have to go back and look. No, they don't practice today, Josh. What about Starkel and will he start? He won't start, but he's going to play. I think you'll see him maybe even earlier this week. It's a train wreck looking for a spot. We will get Ole Miss's best shot. It's going to be tough. Yes. Chase Hogan-Jones says, man, was really impressed with the end around from Warren. Yeah, but I think they had 2 or 3 end arounds with him. No jet sweeps with him, but 2 or 3 end arounds, and looked good on all of them. And not just outrunning people, but also knowing when to cut it up inside. So, yeah, good day by Devion Warren. Was really impressed with the end around. Don't understand the hate on him. All right, everybody. We got a lot of comments, but I don't have time to get them all. We've already gone way overboard. Let me see if there's anything too dramatically unique here. Warren, come out more fired up. Portland State would have beaten us last year. Might have. Ole Miss D held a good Memphis offense, 15. Okay. No, Catalon and Bush didn't play. I think we pretty much got everything. Okay, everybody. So now that we're wrapping up the show, closing out, you're listening on Apple Podcast, go give us a 5-star review. Throw us a review if you want to, but at least give us the rating if you like the content. Again, that helps us so much in bumping the channel up, getting it in front of more like-minded listeners out there. So if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, shut it down right now because I'm not saying anything else other than where to tell you to listen. So go give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts if you like the show. Also available on Spotify and Stitcher to listen. Throw us a thumbs up now if you're watching the video and you haven't done so already. Give us that thumbs up. Facebook Live, we're always streaming on Facebook Live. Subscribe to the page, like the page. I think we're at 75,000 subscribers and 74,000 likes. I'm not even sure what the difference is on those. Also on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and hit the notifications bell so you're notified anytime that we upload new video. HawgSports.com, just $1. If you want some of that VIP stuff that I was talking about with Danny, you want to know what's going on in recruiting, you want more than just the casual fan information, the in-depth stuff. If you're a diehard Razorback fan, then that's what we're for. We're for the diehard Razorback fan at HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Go on there and give us a shot for $1 for your first month or 30% off your first year with a 7-day free trial. All right, everybody, for Danny West, that's all we had on here today. For Danny West and all of our question askers, this has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, and we will catch you on Thursday.